Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really lovely to be here with you all. My name's Kaylee, and I'm a project lead with the Mental Health and Climate Change Alliance. And today I'm calling in from the unceded homelands of Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And just as we get started and settling in here and coming together, I just really want to take a moment to invite everyone. I know we're joining from all different parts of the country and province, across the world in some cases, and just take a moment perhaps to notice where you are and the lands where you're calling in from. Even though we're joining this virtual space today, we're still in connection and relation with the direct communities, lands, and places where we are. And as someone speaking from unceded Indigenous homelands, really want to take a moment to reflect on what that means, what your relationship means to be in this place. And I think it directly relates as well to our topic today, to connecting with stories of climate and what that means to be in relationship with a place and community. So perhaps just taking a moment to take a breath maybe and reflect on your relationship with where you are and what that means to you. And yeah, recognizing too the deep intersections between colonialism and the impacts on mental health, well-being, and climate change, and then also the very important and ongoing historic and ongoing leadership of Indigenous peoples in relation to climate justice and such. So really, yeah, looking forward to connecting that more throughout our work, and I know that will connect, I imagine, as well with the conversation today. I'm very excited to have Adam Cassady joining us today from the BC Centre for Disease Control, to talk about their new project, Ecolens, Snapshots of a Climate Story, which recently launched and very exciting. So it's a new platform from the BCCDC that brings together stories of how climate change is affecting individuals and communities across BC. Sharing lived experiences, Ecolens helps to reveal not just the physical impacts of climate change, but also effects on mental health and broader community well-being. So this presentation will introduce the new platform and explore how climate narratives can strengthen empathy, connection, and explore the values of storytelling, help us navigate a changing climate together. I'm very excited to have a chance to unpack this and connect. And I'll turn it over shortly to Adam, who's a project manager at the BC Centre for Disease Control, exploring the intersections of climate change, public health, and collaborative decision making. He's currently guiding the development of Ecolens, um, and a platform for gathering and sharing lived experiences of climate change across BC. And Adam holds a Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Conservation and a Master of Public Policy and Global Affairs, both from UBC or University of British Columbia. So, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Um, and yeah, I'll
Thanks for
turn it to
having
you,
me.
and I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that great introduction and kind of grounding, bringing us in. That was real calming, and I'll try and kind of match that same energy. Try not to rush through my slides, but I do have, yeah, I've got quite a bit to share. So I'll start by sharing my slides. Okay, I think you can probably see that. Okay, great. All right, so yes, thank you, Kaylee. As you mentioned, Ecolens has just launched, and I'm happy to be here to present and kind of let you all know a little bit more about it and what we are doing with this also. Like Kaylee, I'm also currently in what's known today as Vancouver, on the Coast Salish territories of the people of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations who have yeah kind of ushered or guided or kind of carried this land forward and made it what it is today for all of us. So um, really, yeah, that's always a good way to kind of ground all of this work too is so reliant on our environment and our ecosystems, and it's really it's a nice intersection between kind of health and planet. So I think that'll hopefully come through today. Okay. Um, at the BCCDC, we have been gifted 6 Coast Salish teachings from an elder here, and a lot of them really do kind of speak to the elements of this project. But the one I want to pull out here, and I'll kind of be mentioning this, I think, a couple of times throughout the presentation, some of these these teachings, but really kind of emphasizing that we're all one in the environment, in the world, and kind of pulling us out of strictly kind of surveillance, quantitative data, and kind of looking at more broader regional or environmental impacts, the health of each other, the health of our communities, our relationship to one another, but also the forests and the animals and the plants that we're all living with too, kind of more of a planetary One Health look at the world. So before I get too far in, I just want to kind of give a little bit of a shout out to a lot of the folks that have been kind of made this project possible. Wouldn't be possible without the funding we got from the BC Ministry of Health. And Brianne Corcoran was an early, well, really set this project up for us. Had a lot of input from community of practice we have here in British Columbia, and then also working with the Climate Disaster Project at University of Victoria. They're doing some really amazing work from a journalistic kind of perspective, but really looking at a lot of the impacts, personal impacts. Multiple other collaborators. I can't kind of name them all, but there's a few for you. And so for this presentation, I'll briefly kind of go over the background, how we got here, the objectives of this project or the goals, and then well, kind of give you a bit of a walkthrough or a tour of the website, and go over how stories are submitted, how we kind of moderate them, and then I'll kind of go over about our approach to data analysis, and then leave a bit of time, hopefully, at the end for some questions. So, starting here, kind of setting the stage, we launched this month. Partially, it was good timing, but it was also it's convenient timing or important, I guess, in that COP30 happened this month, and that was weird. In it, they launched the BLM Health Action Plan, which supports the health sector's adaptation to climate change. And it's, as far as I could see or I saw, that it was the first sort of international climate adaptation document dedicated specifically to health by the UN. And it's just kind of one more in this growing snowball of work, this large international global body of work looking at the health impacts of climate change. And from everything we're seeing, I'm sure most of you on this call will know or agree that the climate is changing, and it's not something in the future, something scary to look forward to in the future, but it's something that we're dealing with today, whether we have the tools to, to measure it, or even the eyes to see it. So it's not something that we're going to be dealing with in the future. It's something we're dealing with today. We're not going to be able to fix it in the next couple of years. It's something we're going to be managing and adapting to for the rest of, everyone on this call. It's the rest of our lifetimes. And, if you have kids, it very well could be the rest of their lives too. So this can be really heavy. It can be really heavy it can be so heavy that people don't even want to acknowledge it or really admit it, or even play with the idea or kind of, try it on. It can just be so overwhelming, so complex that it's easier to, I guess, just not look at it, or often too there aren't opportunities to engage with it, with this large idea, as a community or with our friends. So the BCCDC a couple of years ago did a review of kind of what do we want to, what are the priorities of our organization, and 6 of them stood out, and climate adaptation or adaptation to the health impacts of climate change was identified as one of those 4 or 6 priorities. And so, for us to be able to understand and describe the impacts of climate change, we have to be able to, we need data. We need to be able to understand it. We need to collect that information. and then work with our partners to help kind of promote it and share it. So um, within that sort of strategic priority review, we developed an action plan for climate adaptation, how our organization or the center kind of adapts or frames our work to kind of reflect these three larger goals. Um, and Ecolens neatly fits or quite squarely satisfies these three goals. You know, our work embracing ecological connectedness, that idea that we're all one with the environment on the screen here, rather than kind of a hierarchy where humans are at the top and everything is below us, but you know, acknowledging that we are dependent on pollinators, we're dependent on so many, you know, insects to the smallest little, you know, organisms up to, you know, entire communities and ecosystems for our health. So um, the second one there, climate and health information is gathered and shared equitably. And this is something not just within this project, but within our center, we want to kind of move towards reciprocity, not just being extractive, getting information from the communities and then using it, or but also letting the communities see and, you know, kind of share that information and learnings back. Um, so there traditionally a lot of our surveillance tools and methods are heavily quantitative in nature. It's data, it's numbers, it's things that are measurable, and there's more than enough information out there to show us that climate is impacting our health, but it's missing that kind of contextual nuance of the local perspectives, the lived experience, those place-based or the community experiences, not just maybe an individual, but how a community is feeling. Um, those are really difficult things to measure, and they just haven't really shown up in our conventional kind of surveillance tools. So that there's a gap there, and yeah, and then also being able to, yeah, like I said, kind of provide that that two-way kind of reciprocity of information as well. So within this kind of goal, Ecolens does seem to sort of really satisfy a lot of these high-level objectives, um, and objectives of like what we want our organization to kind of represent and how we want to engage with the community or with the province of British Columbia. So we looked at the photo voice method, and I'm sure many on the call will be familiar with this, but it's a powerful participatory action method, action research method that combines a photo and then accompanied text, or yeah, text that's generated or by the submitter or the participant, um, and it allows people to share, think about their own experience, share it, and then also kind of learn from others, and hearing the experiences of others impacts, you know, the way that you see the world as well. So um, and then also that third point there of reaching policymakers is pretty critical, because it's one thing for a group of people to sit around and you know better understand this, but then to be able to communicate that learning or that information up to decision makers across government, across all sorts of organizations. That's pretty it's difficult, to be honest, to be able to translate that kind of contextual, local, place-based, experiential knowledge into something that can be used to drive policy in the province. So Photo Voice has many advantages. It allows researchers and practitioners to gain the, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, to gain the possibility of perceiving the world from the viewpoint of people who lead lives that are different from those traditionally in control of the means for imagining the world. I think that's a really powerful quote or summary, that kind of, yeah, it does, it interrupts that kind of traditional power flow and puts the power back in the hands of the people that are viewing the world and the world around them and how it's changing. So um, it's it's got many strengths, but for the purposes of what we were wanting to do, it does have some challenges. We are going to continue having the challenge. It's going to be an ongoing challenge of subjectivity. Um, who aren't we hearing from? What age groups? What subpopulations are we not hearing from? Older adults, people that have maybe what am I trying to say? No access to the internet, people that don't trust the government because the BCCDC is an arm of the government. So there's always going to be groups of people that we're going to be that are going to be underrepresented in our evidence. Um, Data analysis is quite it's complex, but it's not impossible. But it's quite different than what some of the traditional methods that we're used to kind of looking at and reporting on. So um, I think I'll talk a little bit more about like appropriateness of content and some of the moderation practices that we're going to be doing or that we implement. But then the that third last bullet about the potential trauma for participants and users or the audience. In that we did kind of we we've been working with the Climate Disaster Project, who really helped us kind of develop a trauma-informed approach to what we're asking. We really wanted this to be low barrier, so people didn't need to. It can be anonymous submissions. I'll get into that in a little bit, but there are some like challenges to what a strictly photo voice project. So we're photo voice inspired. Some of these pieces we aren't able to implement. The idea of actually bringing people together and sitting them in a room and getting them to kind of talk about their experiences together can't really happen on an online platform. So there's some challenges, but photo voice definitely has inspired this project. Um, so that's kind of a bit of the context of how we got here and what we're trying to do. I'll go through a little bit of a run through of what Ecolens is, give you a little bit of not a live demo, but show you what it looks like. But in essence, Ecolens is a low barrier platform for people in BC to share their personal reflections about how climate change is affecting their lives, their communities, their environments that they live in. And what I find most interesting and exciting about this project is it's both a science project and an art project. The science of it is knowable. There's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of tools that we can use. It's 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 doable. The art side is more subjective. It's more nuanced, and that's where a lot of it's chaotic, I suppose, but it's a good type of chaos. We're embracing it and we're pulling it in. Um, it helps us, better our understanding of the local impacts, the lived experiences that traditional methods, surveillance methods, just haven't always captured or been able to capture. So stories are submitted through the website. There's a mobile version as well, and visualized on an interactive map. Stories are short; they're just about 100 words maximum, and they're paired with a photo or image. So our goal is to collect that place-based emotion-rich data to help build better policy decisions, both for us, but guidance materials and research. Sharing it with our partners in the health system as well. Our friends at the Climate Disaster Project have a saying. They say, "Story creates community, and community creates hope." And so we see this as being a tool for communities to kind of build hope together, whether that's an actual local community bound by geography, or if it's community of people across a larger province or even across the world. So um, I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge that we talk a little bit about our logo. We worked with Jamin Zarowski of Namgis First Nation, northern British Columbia or Vancouver Island area. And he really smashed it out of the park with this logo. We wanted something inspired by nature, something that emphasizes interconnectedness and kind of momentum, the cyclical nature of nature. And he came up with this eye. And I think it really kind of it feels like it's looking through your screen at you, straight at you. Um, in a way, I feel like it kind of symbolizes that reciprocity of you're looking at, as a viewer, you can view or explore stories, but in a way, we're kind of looking out at you as well, and we want to hear your stories. So I really find that the eyeball as a really good. Yeah, it really captured what I was hoping for. And then it kind of, we're looking through this swirl of a feather and a leaf that kind of just shows the chaotic but like organized nature of nature. And yeah, there's a section on the website you can go and there's a bit more information on the logo and Jamin and some of his work. But I really appreciate the logo. I think it really ties it together. Um, okay, so this will be I was going to do a live walkthrough, but I recognize either my internet connection may be a little spotty or some of yours, might be a little glitchy. So I took some screenshots, but essentially this is what the website looks like, the landing page, and it kind of ushers folks into either exploring existing stories or sharing a story of your own. And so if you click on explore, it defaults into this grid view where you see a grid of some stories. And on the left, there's filters. You can filter by region, by theme, and by date. And so if you're looking for stories that talk about wildfire within the Vancouver and Coast Islands between March and October of 2025, you could find stories that relate to those criteria. Um, which these themes are just for, they're pretty broad themes. So, but we will continue to kind of develop them if there's any missing along the way. So it's kind of as stories build, there's gonna be gaps. There's gonna be new themes that maybe we're not capturing straight away. So it's definitely like the website is live, but it is still going to be a work in progress. Um, so from there, you can click. This is the map view, and it's uses Google Maps. You can click on the top right. There's to maximize kind of full screen, but the same themes themes and filters can be used, and you can kind of see the pins on the map. You can click the pin, it gives you a bit of that bubble out, and from there you can click the individual story, and this is what an individual story looks like. And from here, there's the heart. You can like it, which is it's just a way for people to see, oh, like if you submit a story and you kind of come back a little bit later and you see someone's liked it. I don't know. There's something nice about that feeling. Like it's just a recognition that someone has read it, and appreciated it. So we wanted to make that feature, build that feature in. For sure. And maybe just a little personal anecdote here on this specific story. Um, this story talks about an oil refinery in Vancouver area, and this person growing up saw the flare stack. They understood it as a birthday candle that was lit in honor of whoever's birthday was most recent. So they would say, "Oh, it's burning for my cousin or for my brother, or it's going to be burning for me soon." But then later in life, kind of realizing what that smokestack actually represents. And as a personal anecdote, driving over a bridge in Vancouver, the Second Narrows Bridge, my partner pointed out the refinery, and because she lives with me, I I've shown her a lot to do with Ecolens, and I've showed her this specific this post. And so we were driving over the bridge, and she said she pointed out the refinery and mentioned this post, and mentioned that now when she drives over the bridge, it kind of changed the way she sees it, and she thinks about this post often when she sees it, and that's kind of like exactly the response. One of the responses we're looking for is to share the ideas, um, and then change how people see how we collectively see the world. So um, that was a little side note for this specific post, but um, on the bottom, so this is a screen grab. You could scroll down there at the bottom. It says you may also be interested in, um, and now it's at the top. So this is kind of scroll down, and then there's a bit of a carousel, so you can explore other stories or posts that are similar to the one you're viewing there. And so that was all through the explore side, and now I'll take you over to the share your story side. Um, right away, we give a bit of instructions, what to expect. We talk a little bit about the moderation process, and I think I'll talk about it in I think 3 or 4 slides. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But we also, the bottom there, we collect or we ask for some optional demographic information. So if people feel comfortable, they can share their email address, and they can indicate if they'd like to be, stay in touch later, or be if they'd like us to reach out with other kind of initiatives or projects in the future. But also we collect optional data on things like age range, sex or gender, things like whether you have the material resources, generally to cover yourself, to look at some of the kind of the deeper, socioeconomic factors, or just better understand who actually is posting without collecting personal information like names, and it's optional, so that if people aren't comfortable, they can still submit a story and we can still use it, but we don't necessarily need to know all of this information about a person. It helps us, but it's not mandatory, which we're hoping kind of builds in that low barrier, you know, inclusive environment. Next is a privacy and confidentiality page. We try to make it as short as we can, but still, satisfying our legal team. And once a person reads through it, they need to confirm that they've read it and then continue to upload. And it's about a 9-step process. Only the first 4 are mandatory. And so you need to have something, whether it's a picture or it can be the text of a poem. It can be, it can be a collage. It can be an art piece. It can be the title of or cover of a book. It can be a lot of things. I think in some ways, some people might struggle with the idea of like, is this story that I have in my mind, is this climate related? Is this something that people care about, will want to see? So I think what we don't really care what the photo looks like. There's criteria, of course, but it doesn't have to be like with a great camera. There's some of the photos are, obviously just with a cell phone. So I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is it's not just these perfectly enhanced photos, but they're just real life. It's like looking through the eyes of a person. So um, all to say, the photo, we need a title and date of when the photo kind of was taken or the experience was had, the location so we can put it on a map, and a story. 100 words, but you could put 3 words. We need something to add context to it. Maybe not 3 words, but 100 words maximum. But there is an optional. So the rest, the thoughts. There's a place for people. We ask if they have anything else they'd like to add, because 100 words might not capture the breadth of their experience. And some people aren't quite. I do a lot of writing and in my job, but other people don't. So maybe like they might need a little more space to actually tell their story. So that's a place we let them, and we also ask like if they have any suggestions for how to address the problem or the impact they're experiencing. So it's a bit of a way to build in a bit of agency too. We're not just asking them to share their experience and we're not just harvesting that, but we are asking for what do they think should be done? What do they think we should be looking at? Which I think it's optional. But so far we have had quite a few people engaging in that. So that's really optimistic. And yeah, the demographics and the email address optional, as I said. So all content that is submitted, it gets submitted in draft form and it doesn't go live immediately. We have a team here at the BCCDC who then reviews it before it appears live on the site. We review it and moderate it. And so it helps us ensure that the posts are relevant to the goals of Ecolens. They're climate related, they're health related in some way. They're respectful in tone. They don't include identifying information that could compromise privacy. So that was one it was hard to like, do we blur faces out? We don't want to do that. So in the grand scheme, we do have a moderation protocol that we all follow to make sure that we're kind of moderating these posts in the same way with the same kind of eyes, lens criteria. We want to be especially cautious with stories that include names, direct identifiers, or emotionally sensitive material. So moderators may redact or lightly edit submissions for safety or clarity. So if someone says, my neighbor Bob said, we'll probably just remove Bob and say my neighbor. Or if there's a photo of maybe a bunch of people at a evacuation shelter and, we if we can't guarantee, like ensure, we don't know that all of those people in the photo have consented, that's something we're going to have to think about. And we may have to hold it off from publishing that, but at the same time, we don't want to. So, yeah, it's going to be an ongoing process, but it's I think ultimately it does improve the format of the stories and the content itself. So there may be a slight delay, 2 to 3 days in the moderation, from when the post is submitted to when it actually goes live or is published. But if a submission just doesn't clearly fit the scope of Ecolens, we may follow up with a contributor. If they provided their email address to us, we can ask if they can, maybe clarify what they mean. If they submit a different photo that doesn't that mitigates the issue. But if they don't submit a name or an email address, we don't have that ability to contact them. So we may hold it from publication. We haven't had to do that yet, as far as I know, but may happen. The analytic approach. So this kind of talks a little bit about how we moderate. So once a story is submitted, we take the time to just read through it, look at the photo, kind of get a sense of what that photo is telling us or the story is telling us. Then I guess, as long as it meets all our inclusion criteria, it gets published. And then we take these stories and the data and analyze it using thematic coding in a program called In Vivo. It's a qualitative data analysis software or tool. And using kind of an inductive method for analysis, we focus on identifying the key themes or patterns that emerge, maybe from one story, but also across stories. So we'll read a story or read a submission and code it for pre-identified labels, or if there's something new that we haven't identified, we can add a new label. So this is things like, is the story optimistic or pessimistic? Is it talking about problems or solutions. Tons of different codes can get made, but then over as these grow and our kind of our library grows, we start to see different themes emerge. So um, as they do emerge, kind of different insights will also flow from that, and um, these kind of insights will help us at the BCCDC, but also our health partners across the health system, um, help us improve our programs and planning to better serve the public and better address some of these health impacts and needs. So I think I've got two or three different themes that are sort of starting to emerge. We do only have, I think, about just over 50 stories so far, so it's not quite enough to really make a lot of meaningful in inferences yet. But we do have some really good tidbits and really interesting kind of themes emerging. So this one here is an example of an emerging theme, just generally talking about environmental changes in habitats and ecosystems. Stories in this theme focus on shifts in local wildlife, changes in plant cycles, or degradation of ecosystems, um, you know, algae blooms or presence of dry riverbeds when normally they're not dry. These kind of reflections help us document changes that residents or British Columbians are witnessing firsthand, many of which are tied directly to local climate indicators or, things on the land, seeing pollen when I have pretty strong pollen allergy. And when I can feel it before I can see it. And that's an interesting indicator for me. I can tell when spring is coming much earlier than some people, and it's not necessarily a gift, but um, it is something I notice. I pick up on it. Um, we're also seeing a lot of stories about health, which is not surprising, but both talking about the physical and mental dimensions of well-being. So these stories speak to things like respiratory impacts of wildfire smoke, heat exhaustion, the emotional toll of watching, your beloved a landscape that you love, or in a community, an environment that you've grown up with change or disappear. That can be really hard, and we don't often have places in society or general life where we can talk about that. And so many contributors describe feelings of grief, anxiety, worry for future generations. And so capturing these lived experiences can help deepen our understanding of the range of climate-related health burdens, beyond what the quantitative data sets or quantitative tools that we have currently, beyond what they can tell us. So really excited about Ecolens for this aspect, and kind of digging deeper into that idea of mental health and well-being is a distinct theme emerging specifically around eco grief. I'm sure you're the people on this call. Most are aware of or familiar with this. Um, it's a sense of loss, helplessness, or mourning tied to an environmental change. Um, these stories often speak to like intergenerational fear or cultural traditions at risk. The top left story was talking about this a person new to Canada who, the first year that they came and the first year that it snowed, they went out at night and just walked around with a playlist on, and every year now they put that playlist on, and they kind of continue that tradition. So it's it's a cultural tradition for that person, and they were describing that one winter, it may not happen. We might not get snow at all that one year, and what that would look like for this person who really kind of values or looks forward to that specific tradition that they've developed. So it can be sadness that comes from knowing a place will just never be the same again, or these emotional responses that they're just as valid as physical health impacts. They're just as and they're just as important for us to understand to better build into our adaptation strategies as a society. They remind us that climate change or climate resilience also acknowledges or means we have to acknowledge grief and we have to help communities process it. Um, it's not our job at the BCCDC, but it's as a member of a community that we serve. It's our job. It's everyone's. It's something we all participate in. Want to touch on next steps. We do have a few options or ideas for how to integrate this into some of our existing dashboards, or we have a climate and health app that summarizes. So far, it's only quantitative data indicators. So you can look at a CHSA, a community health service area, and currently we have a lot of information on indicators for that area. But as this project develops, if we have 2 or 3 stories for this CHSA, we can include that in that kind of dashboard, so that when somebody is looking for information, it contextualizes some of it with that qualitative kind of lived experience. There's other dashboards, community health profiles that are a little less climate specific, but kind of function in a similar way that our partners use, the regional health authorities use to better understand the local impacts at that community level. We also, with our project, we intend on producing an annual report summarizing just generally what we've seen or what we're seeing in the data. And then as health authorities or other folks in the health system come to us with specific questions, it'll just help us better address those questions. Or, as I said, Ecolens is new. It's going to continue to evolve. We're learning as we go. So there's going to be opportunities for more deeper dives in the future if we do identify let's say an audience group that we're not receiving information from, whether it's men, or whether it's folks in like rural, like a community, a regional area that we just haven't got information on. We can kind of maybe target, maybe that's not the right word, but kind of look at and find ways to better engage with those groups. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's what we're here for. So I'll stop there. I don't see we're getting on with time, so I just want to say thank you so much for having me. We see this as a truly collaborative effort, and we're hoping that you'll explore the site, try out the submission process, share a story of your own. We're also asking you to share information about Ecolens with your networks, especially or with your networks or with the community partners, especially if they work like directly with communities, communications or climate equity, engagement, that kind of those spaces. Anyone, I guess, we're looking for getting this in the hands of folks who are positioned well to participate and help grow this project. If you have any questions or ideas or want to set up a call to talk about it further, please don't hesitate to reach out. The ecolens.ca website website, but also email address is on the screen there. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing some of your stories and learning from all the unique insights that we have to share or to find from this project.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing more about Ecolens. It's really, exciting to see the way these things are being woven together. And really connecting communities and the stories and things. I think, are you willing to take a few questions and such if
You
folks
bet.
are
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome? I think there's already one in the chat. And for everyone else, if you want welcoming questions either in the chat, or I do have the Q&A open as well. Or if you would rather ask live, feel free to put up your hand and I will bring you off mute. But I think there's a couple already in the chat.
Okay.
Perhaps sorry,
We'll
if
start
you
with,
want to read it aloud, or I can read it aloud just for the recording too.
yeah, I can read it.
Sounds good.
The first
Thanks
one,
so
I
much.
can see Is there or are there plans for physical spaces, even temporary or other forums, to process what is being shared in order to combat the isolation many are experiencing with climate emotions and to connect people to each other as an important piece of coping with climate change's mental health impacts? Noticed on the site there weren't readily available direct phone numbers or locations for help centers. Um, I would imagine this is a subset, people interacting with the site who are more vulnerable to mental health burdens. Um, that is something I didn't mention. Partly for time, is there is a page on the website specifically for resources. So we didn't want to just have doom and gloom. We also wanted to provide resources for people to explore. Um, it's kind of hard when if we just had linked websites, web links change a lot. So we've started by sharing partners who kind of do that collation work for us. I think the MHC Mental Health Climate Change Alliance, I'm pretty sure is on there because you guys do provide a lot of great resources for a lot of this, but that is something we're going to be continuing to build out. And yeah, I think we were originally kind of worried about maybe an influx or a predominance of negative stories, but there have been some really inspiring stories, not necessarily embracing the climate change, but I don't know, I guess witnessing acts of beauty, whether it's in their community or in nature itself. There is a lot of optimism on the site. So, but you're right, there's a great opportunity or possibility for traumatizing or re-traumatizing folks. So that is something we're going to be continuing building out is that resource section. Um, Another question, is there info on climate change, mental health, and older adults? There is some research. I'm sure you folks would know more so than I. On our website, we don't have much right now. There's quite a bit of study on the mental health impacts of youth. So we found that to be there's a lot of resources there. Um, Older adults, I think we will have a bit of a challenge getting more, representative engagement. Just given, maybe I shouldn't say that because there are a lot of older folks who are quite online and tech literate. Um, I guess we'll kind of wait and see what the data kind of starts telling us as we analyze the responses and for those people that do provide their kind of demographic optional information. If they don't provide it, we just don't know their age. And so, um, yeah, next question. Can Ecolens collect records from youth or children? I work and am connected to networks with teachers and youth, and we'd love to share this resource as it's able to collect records from young people. This is we on the website, the disclosure page, it doesn't require you to be in like 19 years of age or anything. We do recommend that there we haven't yet kind of we've just launched the project, so we want to see kind of take it here and then baby steps kind of build out our engagement and youth will be a big group that we want to target, we want to capture. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with both educational institutions or the education sector to maybe bring Ecolens in as a project for high school students or any age of students. We did have some early submissions from uh, undergraduate students submitting their kind of stories. So I think there's a great opportunity for that and for getting kind of in that network of maybe external to the academia or teaching, but even into community networks, youth groups. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and one of the not problems, one of the nuances of we're a provincial organization, so we don't represent a community. We represent the province as BCCDC. So we do work with regional health authorities that have closer ties to their community members and their communities. And so I think we will be working, we hope to be working with our regional health authorities to work in with that kind of community engagement piece. I think that looks like all the questions in the chat. If anyone has any others, I would be happy to share, but see, there's 6 minutes left. So
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. And thank you so much, everyone, for the great questions and for coming today. Yeah, are there any final questions before we wrap up or anything anyone else wants to bring up or ask while we have Adam here about Ecolens or the projects?
I'll share just since we've launched, there's been one, I think it was Vancouver Sun, put an article about it, and we've we had 3 interviews with CBC Radio yesterday. So there is a bit of media buzz around this, and which has been great, and we've seen an uptick in visits to the site and stories submitted. So that's great, and I'd love to see a few more after today from you folks or from anyone you pass it along to. So
Thanks
yes,
so
this
much,
project
Adam.
is definitely integrating with the arts. It's fun. It's new for me. Not new, but it's really neat to kind of mix that qualitative and quantitative together. So it feels like a really exciting intersection to be working in. So thank you everybody for listening to me and for coming to here. And yeah, I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And thank you, Adam, for your time and for sharing this exciting project with us. Really great to see it launched. And yeah, this integration of art and storytelling and personal experience and coming together with um, the work you're doing with BCCDC and amplifying that. So thank you all so much for attending today. And I'll stop the recording now and I'll stay around if anyone has any other questions or anything like that. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time and for presenting, Adam. Really appreciate it.